Good morning and welcome back to our daily 10-minute Laws of Pesach webcast. Today we will talk about the laws pertaining to Erev Pesach, the day before Pesach, which is the day of the first Seder. Unlike all other holidays, when the holiday begins at the onset, when we light the candles, the evening of the Yom Tiv, regarding Pesach, we're told that the Erev Pesach itself is also a holiday. And the reason for this, mainly it's a holiday after midday. In other words, Erev Pesach after midday is a Yom Tiv in its own right. And the reason for this is because in biblical times, in the times of the Holy Temple, on the 14th of Nisan, which is Erev Pesach, after midday they would bring the Pesach sacrifice, the Paschal offering. And because of this was a great festival for the Jewish people, and therefore in the case of Pesach, the Yom Tov really begins on midday of Erev Pesach. And for this reason it is a law that you're not allowed to work in commerce, business and so on after midday of Erev Pesach, and many places have the law, the custom not to work all day on Erev Pesach. So that depends on custom, but after midday it is universally accepted not to work and to observe this as a minor holiday. Erev Pesach is also a day when the firstborn of every family, the male firstborns, the Bechor, they fast. And the reason for this fast is because of the day, the miracle that was performed for them, and that Hashem passed over the Jewish homes and did not destroy the firstborn of the Jewish people. And as our sages tell us, the Jewish people not necessarily deserve to be saved. Therefore, the fact that they were saved was kind of like a gift to them, a miracle on their behalf, one that they did not deserve, and therefore to atone and to be more deserving, they fast. They make the Erev Pesach a day of fasting for the firstborn. However, because it's not, doesn't have the severity of all the other Jewish fast days and all the other fast days of the Jewish calendar, the rabbis taught us that if one can be exempt from fasting, the firstborn can be exempt from fasting if they participate in a meal that is associated with a mitzvah. For example, a bris. If a firstborn is invited to a bris, and he takes part in that meal associated with that mitzvah of circumcision, once he eats at the meal, he can already then eat the rest of the day, and he doesn't have to fast anymore. Now, of course, not in every synagogue and every city is there a bris on the day before Pesach. So there is another method, another means by which the firstborn can be exempt from this fast, and that is if they partake in a meal associated with the completion of an entire tractate of either the Talmud or an entire book of Rambam, and so on and so forth. If they partake in a siyum, as we call it, a siyum, a completion, they take part in the siyum of a tractate, they can eat at that meal, because that too is a mitzvah meal, and once they ate at that meal, they can then eat the rest of the day. And therefore it became customary that in every Jewish community, in every synagogue, the rabbi or another member of the community makes a siyum, prepares an entire tractate or book of Rambam, and he finishes it right there, and the people then can partake in their the meal associated with that celebration, and therefore eat the rest of the day. A firstborn who is still under bar mitzvah, of course himself, the child doesn't have to fast, but the father has to fast in lieu of his son, instead of his son, and he too, if he wants, can then go to a siyum by celebration of a mitzvah meal, and then absolve himself from his fast by taking part in that celebration. So either the son, the firstborn himself, if he's over bar mitzvah, has to partake in the siyum, or the father of a child, of his own child, which is still under bar mitzvah, if his firstborn is a son, he has to fast or go to a siyum on his behalf. The fast begins, it's a morning to evening fast, so that would begin at dawn, and would go till the Seder. Erev Pesach, we have a mitzvah in the Torah that one is not allowed to eat chametz on Pesach. Now this prohibition begins not with the beginning of Pesach, but it begins on the midday of Erev Pesach. Biblically, a Jew is not allowed to have any connection with chametz from midday on the 14th of Nisan, on Erev Pesach. That means biblically the prohibition against contact, and meaning having anything, any ownership or eating chametz, starts midday on Erev Pesach. That's biblically. But the rabbis were afraid that Jews would make a mistake. In olden times they didn't have clocks, they didn't exactly know when midday was, so they moved it back by 1 hour. The prohibition, they moved back by 1 hour before midday. So if the day is divided into 12 hours, midday would be at the end of the 6th hour. So the rabbis moved the prohibition against having any benefit, and certainly not eating any chametz, from the end of the 5th hour. But then they went ahead and added even another hour to this prohibition, and because they were afraid of a cloudy day, if there was a cloudy day and the sun didn't rise in the morning, and people are confused as to what time it really is, so they were afraid that people would eat chametz or benefit from chametz when they're already not allowed to, even biblically. So they moved back the prohibition against eating chametz to the end of the 4th hour. They added an hour just in case there's a cloudy day and the time for sunrise, people see the sun rising much later because the clouds covered it and they think it's still early, when really it's already late, and therefore they moved it back by 2 hours. But there's a difference between the 5th hour and the 6th hour. In other words, from the beginning of the 7th hour, let's simplify this. From the beginning of the 7th hour, biblically we're not allowed to eat, we're not allowed to benefit, not to have any contact with chametz. The rabbis added 1 hour before, that means the 6th hour. They said that in the 6th hour you should not allow to eat chametz and benefit from any chametz. But then they moved it back, as I said, 1 hour earlier. In that 5th hour they prohibited eating chametz, but they did not prohibit benefiting from chametz. So in the 5th hour you're not allowed to eat, but you can benefit. This is rabbinic. In the 6th hour you're not allowed to eat or benefit from chametz, also both rabbinic. From the 7th hour on, you're not allowed to benefit or eat, and that is already from the biblical point of view. And therefore, one has to stop eating chametz at this year, that would be in the year 2011, on Monday at 11:12. 12 minutes after 11 is the last time you can eat chametz. From then on, you're not allowed to eat any chametz. From 12:16, that means 16 minutes after 12, is the time where you can no longer benefit from any chametz. You may ask, why 12:16 and 11:12? Why not 10 o'clock and then 11 o'clock? That's the beginning of the 5th hour and beginning of the 6th hour. The obvious reason is because when we measure a day, we measure the day from sunrise to sunset. And we divide that day into 12 sections. So an hour is not necessarily 60 minutes, halachic hours. So when you calculate from sunrise to sunset, and you're going to divide it into 12 sections, the end of the fourth section would be at 12 minutes after 11, and the end of the 5th section would be 16 minutes after 12. So once again, At 11:12 a.m. you're no longer allowed to eat chametz. At 12:16 p.m. you're no longer allowed to benefit from chametz. It's in that hour from 11:12 to 12:16, that fifth hour, that we busy ourselves burning the chametz. You have to burn your chametz before 12:16. After we burn the chametz that was left over from the search, we once again nullify the leftover. We nullify all chametz that we may have not found or may have not burned. The reason we nullify the chametz again, nullifying the chametz is it's a 3-line declaration where we say that all chametz is null and void and ownerless. I don't want it. It's dust. It's like dust to the earth, and we want no connection to it. It's no longer ours. The reason we have to nullify the chametz again, even though we did it the night before, is because the night before you nullified all the chametz that you didn't find during the search. But there is chametz that you put away for eating in the morning of the Erev Pesach. The next day you still want to eat, give breakfast to your children, eat yourself breakfast, which would be chametz. It's possible that some of that chametz that you didn't know, and that chametz, of course, you did not nullify the night before. You still want it, and you still want to eat it. We're afraid that some of that chametz may have not been properly disposed of. A little bit of cereal fell somewhere in a corner, you didn't see it. Now that was never nullified, that was never burned, that was never disposed of. That still belongs to you. And then if it's on Pesach, you'll be violating the law against owning chametz if that is still there and it's in your possession. Therefore, we make another declaration of nullification in order to nullify that leftover that we may have not gotten rid of. And this way, we're clean. We don't own any chametz during Pesach, and we don't violate any law. So make sure that after you burn the chametz, you take out the siddur, and there's also a beautiful prayer right after that. That should be said, and this should be done before 12:16 on Monday, early afternoon. Because as I mentioned earlier, Erev Pesach is a minor holiday. Therefore, if you want to take a haircut before Pesach, you have to take the haircut before midday. And the same thing if you want to cut your nails, you should do it before midday. On Erev Pesach, we do not eat anything that we have on the Seder plate that is going to be used as part of the Seder. For example, we do not eat matzah on the day of Erev Pesach. In fact, many have the custom not to eat matzah for 2 weeks before Pesach, from Rosh Chodesh Nisan, and the reason for this is to eat the matzah by the Seder, which is the mitzvah, with great appetite. You anticipate it, and it's not something you just ate and you're not really interested in anymore. It's something you're looking forward to. So you refrain from eating 2 weeks before. But the day of, even if you don't have the custom to refrain from matzah for 2 weeks, the Erev Pesach itself, everyone, that's a law, you're not allowed to eat any matzah that you will use, that could be used for the Seder. You're not allowed to eat any bitter herbs. I don't know who wants to eat bitter herbs during that time, but if you do have that desire, you shouldn't. On Erev Pesach, we also don't eat anything that will be mixed into the charosas, apples and things of that nature, wine. We don't use anything that we will be using for the mitzvah. That night, we do not eat on Erev Pesach. And this you should be very careful with this, because people make mistake and they violate this, and it's not proper. I want to wish everyone a wonderful Pesach again, and I hope that you will remember all these laws and act accordingly. If you have any further questions, you're certainly welcome to call me anytime.